All right then, hello my loves. It's me, it's Jim. I'm back. Today, I'm recording this day before, so you're going to see this tomorrow. All these videos I've been doing have caught up with me now, so now I'm left with having to create videos for you for the coming weeks. So all of that work I did back along and stacking the videos up, they've all been pilfered. But in that void of time that it created over the past 5 or 6 weeks, I've been feverishly painting. Now, these aren't commissions or anything like that. I've merely been painting my arse off for my own pleasure. And today, I'm going to show you every single one of the bastards. So what I'll do is I've kind of broken them down into various phases, I suppose, various art movements that I've gone through over this past month. So I'll start at the very beginning. And this was very, very quickly, I've started painting on a much smaller scale for two reasons. Firstly, it's going to do my wrist a lot less harm, shall we say, working on a smaller scale. And secondly, it means that I can get more paintings done. So, for example, I could paint. I like doing kind of gradations of color in a sky, so dark to light. Something like that on a larger canvas will take me hours sometimes because I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I want the blend to be perfect. But on a small canvas, I can do a similar effect in perhaps 5 or 10 minutes. So it's drastically reducing the time it takes to make paintings. Anyway, let's begin. So I hadn't painted for perhaps, I think it was 4 or 5 months, because I'd been working on that last book, Brown Road Blues, and all the stuff associated with that. So to dip my pen back in the inkwell, so to speak, I just did some of these little abstract ones. So you can see the scale here. They're very, very small. Now, as ever, my camera is utterly shambolic. So what I'll be doing is I'll be scanning these and put them over here so you can get a better look. But you can see the scale here. Very, very tiny little things. They're almost art objects in their own right. I like the scale. They're handheld art, if you will. You can purchase one and stick it in your pocket and then get it out from time to time just to have a little gander. That's the idea. It's not really. Okay, so yeah, so just simple stuff, just blodging down paint just to get a feel once more for what paint feels like. And that might sound like a strange thing to say, but if you are a painter yourself, or you've dallied with any kind of art in terms of traditional mediums, specifically paint, you really do have to get a feel as to, well, how it feels, really, how it goes on, how you can slap it on, and what you can do with it. And you need a little moment after a long what you call it, hiatus, shall we say, from painting, just to get a feel back to the paint itself. So this one, I was just fucking around, just scraping paint around, and then once that first layer had dried, so there, isn't it? I just put a bit more detail over the top. That's an old trick of mine, but I find it very therapeutic. I was using these initial ones just as a form of relaxation, really, meditation almost. I don't really like this one that much. But yeah, it is what it is, really. Yeah, something of nothing, but quite pleasing colours, I suppose. But there we are. Um, I'll talk a little bit later on about how I might price these if I end up selling them, but we'll get to that boring shit later, shall we? Okay, so off the bat of those, I thought, right, let's get a bit more detail going, get something slightly more interesting going on. So my first little dalliance was this bugger. So it's kind of like I don't know. I envisage like two nuns perhaps entering a strange temple, a temple of flesh or blood maidens perhaps. I did that in one go, so wet on wet. It was a little bit of a nightmare. I started that painting without any idea of where it was going to go, and these forms just came about by chance, really. That's another way I like to work. Not really plan too much. And so similar with the next two I'm going to show you. This one here. So this one became kind of a fantasy setting. but as I'll show you here, its beginnings were more abstract, really, but then I found form within it, and I came up with this design here. It is nothing special, obviously, but I enjoy doing it. Again, it's something. It's becoming something. My art is starting to re-emerge from the abyss it's been languishing in for the past 5 months. Here's another one. So this one looks like a kind of. I wanted this to look like a science fiction kind of construction or some kind of building, perhaps even like a hotel. Perhaps those kind of strange molded concrete monstrosities you sometimes see. I don't know, in seaside resorts, perhaps abroad. It probably needs another layer, perhaps, to accentuate that form, but I probably won't bother. I'll leave it where it is. Okay, so after that, I think I painted Gulliver's knob. Let's get that out. Okay, so this is Gulliver's knob. So yes, Gulliver from the Gulliver's Travels. His I don't know how it's happened, but his knob's fallen off and it's laying across the countryside. This is one of the beauties of being a hobby painter. You can paint whatever the fuck you like, and I fancied painting a giant knob. But it didn't begin that way. So if we bring up some of the earlier versions, initially I did this kind of painted sketch. I thought maybe this strange hill in the middle surrounded by the fields. But because I had used this kind of, I don't know, Venetian red to do the underpainting, that hill was quite red, wasn't it? And I thought, my God, that looks like the tip of a penis. So I thought, well, instead of having just the tip protruding from the ground, let's lay the fucker out. So these are a few other iterations. This first one, the size of the bell end, if you will, was obliterating the form of the knob in the background. So I had to shrink that down slightly just so to remove the confusion, perhaps, of what we're actually dealing with, a giant severed penis. Right, so then I'll have to play catch up here when I'm editing this together. But I thought, right, from now on, I've got those few abstract ones out of the way. I've got that knob out of my system. Let's do some underpainting, some painted sketches. So rather than drawing, because I don't draw anymore because of my wrist, it's more or less locked in this position now. I can bend it a bit this way, but I won't go the other way. So drawing's out of the question. Let's paint the bastards. So I did these 3 sketches, and one of them became Gulliver's knob. The other 2 are the ones I'm going to show you next. So the very first one I rendered up to completion was this one. So it's a kind of, I think I called this one Temple of the Triangle, imaginatively titled there. As some of you know, I like to listen to films whilst I'm painting. I was listening to Total Recall when I painted this one, the Arnie classic, and so this painting always reminds me of that. I was going to call it Total Recall for that reason.
Get your ass to Mars.
I may still do that. But at the same time, as soon as I painted this one, and the one I'm going to show you next, I started thinking, I could make a book out of these. So I'm thinking at the moment, I'm going to do lots of these paintings, and they're going to be the backbone for writing a book. So rather than writing a book initially and then illustrating it, I'll illustrate the book and then write around it, weave a path around it. Because a number of people have said to me that some of these ones that I've been doing, they remind them of the fighting fantasy illustrations you used to get in those kind of adventure books. So this is the other one I did off the back of that. Again, I'll show you some progression over here. So a very tenuous sketch, slowly added more and more layers until just, well, an hour ago, I did one final layer over the top. So I made the pointy bit more red and then just increased the tonal variation just to make the whole thing pop a bit more. Again, some of you have registered interest in buying some of these. They will find themselves on eBay eventually when I can be asked to photograph it all properly. I've done some preliminary photographs for this video. But yeah, in terms of the pricing, I'm not quite sure yet because, so something like this bastard here, I mean, despite its diminutive size, I mean, it's tiny, isn't it? I mean, very small. I mean, it's at least, no, I was going to compare it to the size of my penis then, but no, I won't. But it's deceptive because it took a long time to do. So in terms of hours, I'd hate to think how many I put into that. But so I don't know about pricing yet. But it won't be very much. I will say that. It won't be expensive. But yeah, I'll settle on an amount another time. So the rest of these ones I'll show you now are part of that series that I'm envisaging. So this one here is a bottom. Again, this one was started as a sketch. So I'll probably show you here the sketch and this final rendering. What I did, I overpainted a little bit just now, just to do some highlights on that posterior. So this one, like the other ones, it just sprung from my subconscious really. So I wanted a bum in a box, primarily. And then in the foreground then, almost as an aside, I painted these mountains that are actually kind of, it's like made of cardboard and it's being propped up to potentially show this bottom that there's mountains in front of it. I have no idea why I did that, but there's something going on there. I have no idea as well how I'm going to weave this into a story. It's more or less impossible, but I mean, that's the tenuous idea I've got at the moment. Again, this one here. So I showed this in one of my live streams recently, and someone said it reminded them of the alien machinery that appears in Total Recall. And I think I was probably listening to the end of Total Recall when I did this.
Get your ass to Mars.
Subliminally, I probably was influenced by that. But again, I think it would potentially be a location within that proposed book, if I ever write the bastard. Okay, the next one. Again, this started as a sketch. I'll show you in a bit on the side. So this one here, I really like this one. I mean, this one's quite successful. I mean, it's very small. It's very small, but it packs a lot of detail, so to speak. Now, for this one, I was listening to the film Uncle Buck, John Candy film. Absolutely wonderful. So when I look at that, I think of John Candy. I'm calling this one Mating Ritual. Now, if we look at the instigating sketch, you can see that these two creatures, separated by these glory holes, really, they're performing a kind of act. So one has a phallic tip and the other one is holding something that could be used as something that the penis could go into, shall we say, in a symbolic sense. In the sketch, I had the female version being slightly more compliant, or rather eager to please this phallic object coming through the doodad. But in the painting, I wanted it to be slightly more playful, in that the female creature is kind of taunting this rather stupid creature on the other side, male creature, thinking only with the probing phallus which it's thrusting through the hole. So there's a little game going on there. Again, no idea how I'd weave that into a story, but I just bloody enjoyed doing that one. Again, this one was a sketch. Let's pop it up. So the sketch was kind of it in a nutshell, really. I haven't done a great deal to it, rather than flesh it out and add some detail to the head and the pyramid. I've put a hoop around it. Again, let's put it over there. Unfortunately, when I was painting it, my partner said, "Oh, she's got a feather for a head." I didn't like that, so I've altered it so it resembles less of a feather. I don't want it to really resemble anything. I like it to be slightly more indeterminate as to what it might be. Interestingly as well, the paint, like this figure again, I just painted that as a sketch, and I was quite pleased with myself that the proportions are not correct. It's definitely off. It's not as considered as some of the portrait work I normally do, where I'm very more exacting. In fact, I tend to translate images to canvas using like carbon paper, just so I could get the proportions correct and that it's exactly matching the composition that I envisage. This one I just painted straight off, and that's the way I'm going to work from now on, because I can't be asked to spend too much time titting around with things like that. Okay, the last two I'm going to show you are kind of ones that I've shall we say rescued from death. So the first one, I'm going to pop this up now. This has gone through many different iterations, and I've shown it on this channel before. It's an abstract mess, really, and it got progressively more messy, and I was less pleased with it. I must have poured hours and hours into that bastard thing, and in the end I used this green paint just to block out all of the shit I didn't like, and I was left with this odd arrangement. I was pretty close to putting my fist through it at this point, but then I looked at the lower end and I thought that could house a young lady. So I've done this. So I thought it looked like an incubator. So she's lying down in this kind of incubator. Now I'm going to show a better quality image now. So in my mind, she's kind of landed on or she's been birthed on this hostile world in this incubator, and yeah, it's an obviously it could be a hostile world, and she's hopefully one of the people there to populate it. That's the idea anyway. So I consider that a save, because that was going to go in the bin. Also, this ear now is completely deaf. It's completely bunged up with wax, and there's nothing I can do about it at the moment. So the final one I show you, I may have to cut out. So if you don't see anything else after this point, it means I've had to cut the end of the video off because YouTube don't like it. And there might be a very good reason for this. So this final one that I've kind of saved, if you will, was a commission. Now, a year ago, a chap over in America commissioned a couple of paintings from me. I did them. He was happy with them. I posted them off. He paid me for them. Now, for the final one, he commissioned another one, and he kept revising what he wanted. So I had to change the face on the body. I had to change all different things. So I don't know how many hours I put into that. It was quite a few. I mean, it was, I suppose, upwards of 15 hours or so after I'd done the alterations. This person then ghosted me completely, would not communicate whatsoever. And I was like, fucking hell, I'm left with this now. No one's going to want that. Yeah, so I've altered it drastically. Well, I've blocked out all the background, left it at that. Even so, we're left with something I don't think many people would want to buy. But there we are. So here we go. So we got this. Now, as you can see, she has some very abnormally sized knockers. Now, this person does not exist in real life. You might be surprised to know. I mean, perhaps there are people that look like this. I mean, I'm not judging or anything. It's just I had to exaggerate the hell out of this for the prospective client to be happy, and they wanted it to go to those kind of levels. Yeah, so I don't have an image of what he wanted. All I've done is painted over it in this kind of gradation of red, Venetian red, and a bit of cadmium red mixed with a bit of burnt umber, just to knock it back. And it looks like a curiosity now, I suppose, something that you might have in the bin. No, in the in your room, in your house, perhaps when you're entertaining your elderly relatives, you want to surprise them and perhaps bring on an early heart attack. But it's got a gothic appeal, perhaps. I don't know. I just paint the bastard. I'll put it up at some point and see if anyone bites. If they don't, be slinging. I'll give it to a charity shop. All right, so there we go. That's it for today, painting wise. I'm going to do more of these things. I've got a load more up in my drying rack. You can't see them. So ones that I've begun but are not finished. I'll show you those next month, perhaps. I don't think I'll be quite as feverish as I have been this month. I mean, 15 paintings in 1 month is more than I did in the whole of last year. So, but of course they're very small. Next week I will, hopefully, if I've got time, I'll do a book review, because I've read 6 books now since my last book review. So I've got lots to review. It's just whether I've got the time to do it. Yes, so we'll see how that plays out. Thank you as ever for watching, and I'll be back soon with something, obviously, hopefully. Cheerio.